We do tend to think, well, we've now the product is in place, and surely the manufacturers and surely the government and surely all the standards take material health into consideration so that designers don't need to think about it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. More and
No.
more, we're finding out from the health perspective that the standards that are actually in place are actually very low and are really not fit for purpose in many cases.
Yes, another podcast episode about sustainability and beyond. Because listen, this is what I want you to know and remember. We as interior designers and architects are very important in creating awareness in sustainability, in making it happen. Because we are the shackle in the middle of the chain. On one end, we have our clients, the consumers, and on the other hand, the producers, the manufacturers. So we can control positive change. But then one of the first questions might pop up to you, like, how do we know what's a good product? How do I assess those healthy products? And how can I easily implement that in my own interior design business? Therefore, I've invited the founders, yes, two guests today, from 540 World UK, and 540 World aims to create a circular world of good. Both partners are circular material specialists and provide gold standard planet positive solutions for businesses and material innovators. They are going to share practical pathways to regenerative design and the how to transform from a linear economy design to regenerative, cradle to cradle safe and circular design. Here they are, Charlene Church and Paul Capel.
Hey.
Hi there.
Great to be here.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Well, to get started, what's the very first beginning? Can you take us to the very first beginning of where the idea, this mission, this hunger to be good for our planet? Where does it start, Charlene?
Oh, you're muted.
Can't hear you. Charlene?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Thanks again for having us both. And for me, it probably started when I was about 10 years old, when I was actually thinking of becoming a marine biologist. At 10, I think everybody wants to save the world. I think we have better principles sometimes when we're that young. And we actually ended up cleaning penguins after a big oil spill. And I was very affected by cleaning oil out of penguins' eyes and nostrils, and seeing the distress of these birds in Cape Town, where I'm originally from. So that was probably my very first impact of seeing basically products in the wrong places. So that was probably my first impact. And then, to cut a long story short, I ended up in design, product design for years and years, and then ended up creating lots of plastic products for the likes of Disney and various other big corporations. And I have to say, my principles weren't part of design, and neither were they part of our design degree or anything like that. So I went full circle and then had a sort of new conscience around about 2015, meeting Paul in 2019 after doing masters in architecture, and just going, we need to create healthy materials, healthy spaces, healthy products. So that's the short version.
Yeah, great. Yeah, sounds very logical. Great route to go from there, from the penguins and really back to nature to what you've built right now. We are going to dive into it deeper later on. So, Paul, what's your story? How did you end up here? Or well, how did you end up starting here almost? Yeah.
Well, I guess for me, I grew up in the countryside. My dad was a forester, so I was always surrounded by nature, and I got kind of scared and kind of into activism quite young. I used to do quite a lot of Greenpeace stuff, and it was basically kind of like trying to do something about some of these big picture things that we all get a little bit scared about. And then in 2006, I read a book, and it was called Cradle to Cradle, Rethinking the Way We Make Things, and changed my life, really. It sort of took away my scared old eyes that was creating this activism in me, this kind of like, this desire to go out and make some good in the world, to actually, wow, there's some solutions out there that can actually fix some of this stuff. So, you know, it's gone kind of full circle, as Shalene likes to say. You know, it's 540 World is about changing from this linear, destructive sort of pathway that we seem to have found ourselves on into a circular, safe, responsibly made one. So that's kind of where we came from and where we're heading.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's great to see how you become, instead of those activism, those like, no, stop doing that, or you can't do that, till a really, the solution-based people that'll think, okay, we have to do something about it, but how can we do it, and what can we do? And that's mostly the most tricky part or difficult part, to take action on it. We all know that some things are not good for the planet. We don't know what not to do, and we wish it would be better, but where do you start? So what is now the goal from 540 Planet, 540 World?
So for 540 World, we've got multiple minor goals, but I think the major one is quite big picture really, and we'd like to just help the built environment, particularly because that's where we find our both of us have master's degrees in architecture, so that's mine's in interior architecture specifically, but we do find that is such a hugely wasteful and impactful area, and it makes sense for us to try and transform the built environment and interior environments to a non-linear design objective space into a healthy material regenerative design space. So that's the sort of big picture goal.
Yeah, great. You said the linear economy. What do you mean with linear?
So I think most of your audience are probably fairly familiar with linear design, and that usually tends to mean take, make, waste. And what that means is really taking materials, virgin materials out of the ground and out of plants or wherever it comes from, and then manufacturing that into a product or material. And then there's a lot of waste in that process, and there's a lot of waste in the design and the use. It's often single use. And for the most part, that is a linear design process. So the whole process of finding material, putting it in a building, and then ultimately ripping it out and putting it in a skip, ending up in landfill or incineration or polluting the air, that's the classic take, make, waste linear design model.
Yeah, so take, make, and waste. Yeah. So you have I can imagine it's most designers, architects, they see kind of the design as their end product, right? It's like, hey, I create something, I design something, I create something, and then, wow, it's finished. And well, people are living it and using it, but the next step, that's mostly not part of our, for sure our business models, because it's maybe they want to change something over the years. And you have the same client again, or another company who's occupying the building, or circumstances. So what is it what is maybe the mind shift that we need to have as designers? Because it's definitely not the end product, although we see it that way sometimes.
No, it's not the end product, Mark, and I think it's a great question. Thanks for asking. Paul will go into it in a little bit more detail in terms of what we've stumbled across as some of the best framework in the world and what that means in the categories. But for me, I think the starting point is to reestablish your key objectives. And as an interior designer, you're normally looking at the client's functionality, their budget, and aesthetic. Those are usually the key kind of areas that you use for design. And I know you like to say, don't leave your interior design audience the same after they've seen a podcast. So that's really the challenge point. And I always say, look at the context and look at the big picture context. So, we know that our planetary boundaries, we've transgressed 6 of our 9 planetary boundaries since May last year. So big picture science is telling us that we all need to look at our sphere of influence, and our sphere of influence might be with our clients, it might be with the specification or procurement team or whatever it is. But as designers, we have to realize that we're a spoke in that big wheel. So we really need to start designing differently. And that's partly what we're talking about today. So I think it's looking at the fact that you're part of a bigger picture. You're not actually just a small spoke in a wheel. You really are important. So that's the first thing, is reestablishing your objectives. So I would like to disrupt those those classic objectives, and actually say to everybody, you really need to look at your process differently. So I say that in two spaces. So one is your pre-design.
Yeah.
So I always look at ABC. You've got your ambition levels, and that involves all stakeholders, just to keep with the A's for now. So B is your briefs and C is your contracts. So in pre-design, you can actually challenge your entire stakeholders, your clients, and everybody involved to start looking at things more holistically, using, planet positive materials, things like that. So if they're in your ambition levels right from the beginning, throughout your stakeholder briefs and contracts, your ABCs of pre-design, it's much less likely for the good products to fall off at the end due to budget or due to any other.
Yeah, so it's urgent to start at the very first point. It should be one of your design principles almost, actually, yeah, to get everybody on board, and that they know from the very first point they're going to work with you.
Absolutely.
That everybody knows you're going in the right direction, or at least you know in which direction you would like to send it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're not just saying that in a sort of an ideal world. What we're actually saying is that's quite evidentially based. We're seeing that in the international sectors that are much more mature now, doing this very successfully. They one of their key lessons that they've taught us out of the big projects they've done is that if you get all the stakeholders on board, you are much more likely to succeed with a regenerative or beyond sustainable design model. If you don't, you're likely to get it'll get cropped off either from procurement, for budget, or somewhere along the lines it'll get hacked to pieces. So that's really, really a really important pre-design ABC, ambition levels, briefs, and context is the starting point. And Paul, no doubt, integrate more of how we would talk about design and how you find those materials and how you verify that they are the right ones to use.
Yeah, because there is, as you said, there's a lot of greenwashing involved. We have so many words and definitions for cradle to cradle greenwashing, with sustainable, durable, whatever. It's most of the time it's a lot of marketing. Like we said, a lot of people. Is a wonderful quote of yours. Like a lot of people know master the art of storytelling, but do they master the art of doing the right thing? And that's might be a big problem right now. We are facing every day with all the suppliers and manufacturers, right? So how do we know?
That's why I actually wrestled Paul to the ground, not literally, obviously, in 2019, because I just finished my master's and I'd integrated. I'm a partner in a health clinic as well as design specialist, and so I'd literally spent years doing design in commercial sectors and then looking at health, and I wanted to design humanly healthy spaces. So I spent my master's looking at materials design and how to optimize human health. And so when I came out, I naively thought, oh, well, I'll just look for, really healthy materials and carry on designing as we always get taught to design. And that was completely wrong. And to find the materials proved incredibly difficult, which is how I actually ended up going, do I need to now become a chemist and an engineer and a biologist? And, how do I actually find whether this bamboo versus this,
There's a lot of technicalities, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And greenwashing is very mature. And being in marketing for years, I understood, you'd read a paragraph and I thought, this is very well written, but I have no way of verifying if this is actually true or not. And unfortunately, people have realized that sustainability and using those kind of terminologies is a marketing ploy. It helps their product sell. So they'll use it and have been using it quite willy-nilly up until now. There haven't been guides till recently. So that's where I sort of got hold of Paul, because I knew he was basically the sort of head honcho in this country. And I said to him, we need to actually help clients find the materials. We need to help designers and architects. They don't have the time or the luxury of a couple of years like I did to actually find cradle to cradle certified is the world global standard for materially healthy, circular and socially fair materials. And then you still got to find them. So it's a really, really difficult, a tricky navigation for most people who just want to really just design and they want to use the right things. But for them to find them is not easy. So that's where I met Paul, and I said we need to help people access this and help bring the message forward.
Yeah, but because I was mentioning Samuel in our first meeting, is if we ask our painters, for example, if we leave it to them, like, hey, I want can you serve me for a green paint? He will give you green paint for sure, but the color green, right? He has no clue. He can go on the marketing facts of a brand or what his supplier will tell him, but you never know if you do the right thing. So it has to come from the very first chain, like you as a designer telling your client, educating your client on what's the best for them probably and for the planet, and then all the people and parties that are involved after you, that you can put them on the same track in the same line. Yeah, so Paul, you are more the scientist, more the proof, tell me more. How does it work? Because it is technical and biology. How do you make sure we have we can use the right products?
I think that you touched on a really interesting point there, this technology and biology thing, because if you start from that very beginning of trying to create these things in this cradle to cradle way, we clearly define, is this a technical thing or is this a biological thing? Because if you create things that need to do a technical function from biological materials, sometimes that's not necessarily the best tool. So sometimes you if you want to have a technical part of it, like a metal or something, then you don't want that to biodegrade while it's doing its intended design. So it's really key, some of those fundamental things. And there's people been working on this idea for decades now. Cradle to Cradle, that book I mentioned, was written in 2002, so it's like 21 years ago. And since then, industry has been trying to evolve, trying to work out how the heck we do this stuff. How do we do circular has been around for a while. Circular economy, we start to call it, circular design, but there's already, like sustainability, 150 different variations of a definition for it. So what CDC, Cradle to Cradle, does is it's a framework, it's scientific, it's based on third-party verification, so you can trust it. And that's the thing, it's got so much richness to it. It's quite tricky to actually explain it in an easy way, because you just want a green paint, or you just want something that you're going to use in your design.
That's the thing, Paul. We are creatives and we want to do the best thing, but all the research we need to do and all the time we need to spend on finding the perfect products, and it's changing very fast. There are coming new products every day. Maybe new products will enter the market, and we don't know again if it's a marketing product. Is it a technical innovation for cradle to cradle, or really good biological one? Mm-hmm. And how does it function? If you put paint on the wall, has it the same qualities than let's call it chemical paint? Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to mention the health issues we can get from all this toxic
exactly. Air. This is why pretty much I stick to Cradle to Cradle certified as a kind of like foundation for the work that I do and that 540 World does, because you can guarantee that the products that have got a Cradle to Cradle certification are usually the best quality. So you get sustainability, you get circularity, but you also get the best quality. And this is quite a kind of eye-opening thing for a lot of people, because a lot of people think, okay, we want to do the best thing we can, we want to do the right thing, but we have to do a lesser thing. Yeah, we have to do something. Sustainability is maybe somehow, it doesn't function in the same way that the normal one does. But actually, that isn't true with Cradle to Cradle certified. As I say, you look at the products that have gone through this process, and it's so rigorous that you end up with the best quality, and you get all that other stuff, almost by default. So we love it. When we explained this to the UK Environment Agency, they were like, wow, this is amazing. This kind of feeds into 11 of the UN SDGs. It feeds into all of our sustainability ambitions, social ones, carbon ones, all of these things. So this is why we take it to heart and talk a lot about it.
Sven, I'm glad you mentioned paint, because it's something that most of us use all day long in every project.
There's some great paints.
we found that, you know, when I started doing the material health research, and I actually found out that synthetic paint takes 5 years to complete its off-gassing, and that off
5 years.
5 years after it's dried, still off-gassing, and
So
those are
I'm thinking of this fresh new baby room where you put your child safely in there.
no, and
No.
that's these are quite challenging points because we do tend to think, well, you know, we've now the product is in place, and surely the manufacturers and surely the governments and surely all the standards take material health into consideration so that designers don't need to think about it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. More and
No.
more, we're finding out from the health perspective that the standards that are actually in place are actually very low and are really not fit for purpose in many cases. So, for example, if we stick to paint, there are just two important points. As I said, it off gases up to 5 years after it dries. So if you know that that's got carcinogens, VOCs, all these other terrible, you know, parabens, plastics, all sorts of other things are inside the paint, and you know that it's delivering toxins up to 5 years and sometimes longer, because in some cases the materials actually degrade. So actually the material health gets worse over time. So it's not like it goes on the wall and then now it's all stable. In some cases, it doesn't even do that. And for paint, for example, for synthetic paint, it can produce up to 30 liters of sludge per liter of paint that we use. So every liter that we popping on a wall, it's equal to 30 liters going into landfill or into water systems. So those are just two examples. A third one, which I'm sorry if anybody's a bit scared by these things, but these are really important facts to know about materials. So paint, for example, in the UK, they did a big study a while back. 40% of decorators, which is the terminology they use here for people who paint as a career and occupation, 40% of decorators end up getting lung cancer. That's nearly 1 in every 2.
Oh.
Now, if we know that as designers, and I do know, I mean, the minute I heard these statistics, I could never, ever specify a non-cradle to cradle paint, knowing that I'm allowing toxins into that person who's actually doing that 24/7 for their career. And in office spaces where you're sitting 95% of your day in interior, an office space or in your home. So it's a no-brainer for me. You know, that's how I learned about graphenstone paint, which is CO2 absorbing, and it's got no carcinogens. So for a long time, that was the only paint that I could specify in the UK, because it's cradle to cradle certified at gold level and at silver level. For colors, it's got every color that you can think of. It does all these other amazing things, and it's got no health negative areas whatsoever. Fortunately, things have moved on, and there are a couple of other brands now internationally that also have cradle to cradle certified. But it's really difficult for a designer to become a circular material specialist, because they don't I mean, I've got 20 years of health and a master's in this. You know, you can't do that straight away. So like Paul says, if you don't have the time, which we appreciate people don't, just like you go and buy fair trade bananas, most people do these days, you go and buy cradle to cradle certified products, you literally can sleep at night, because you know that you are not integrating a terrible chemistry just from the material health. And then you've got all the other 5 categories, which I'm, you know, Paul's better.
Yeah, which ones are they? Paul, are you into the?
Yeah, so there's actually 7 really in the new version, but there's 5 criteria. So material health. So this is the chemistry and the biology to the parts per million, tested against, I think, about 24 endpoints, where it's like, does it bioaccumulate in fish? Does it accumulate in our body tissue? These kind of like scientific measures of what the chemistry and the biology is doing in the system. The second one is product circularity. So how does this sit in a system? So this is, we know what the material is, we know how it flows through a system. It might not be actually circular, we call it circular, but it's a kind of flow of material.
Yeah.
So that's the second, product circularity. And that is broken down into multiple strands of like the design, actually how you put it together. And this is what's really quite interesting. You know, you can be an interior architect and change the system or your components quite quickly and in quite small cycles if you fix it in the right way. So say you use mechanical connections instead of
to assemble for
exactly. So the way you assemble it makes it easy. If it's easy to assemble, it's easier to disassemble. Therefore, it's easier to change. So you could have a fresh thing every few years, as long as you keep the value of that material.
Yeah, there was one from the other podcast with Ankita Dwivedi. It's she's another sustainable hero, and she said if you can don't glue it, if you can screw it.
Exactly.
Because it has to do. I never thought about designing an interior that you know up front that you can take the whole interior design off, let's say in half a day, because it's easy. It's cheaper to change your interior that way, but it's even better for the material that you can reuse it or resell it or whatever, or create something else for it. But when it's glued, even with this toxic glues most of the time to stay on the wall.
Exactly. So that fits into the whole sort of modularity, disassembly, all that kind of thing. So exactly, screw, don't glue, weld, avoid welding, rather bolt instead of weld. All of that kind of, there's so many along that area. So like Paul says, the second pillar is circularity, and that includes sourcing, design, and systems. And then there are another 3 really. Do you want to mention them, Paul?
Yeah, so that's really to do with the material and how it sits in a system, and then it's how do you make the product. So what greenhouse gases are emitted, how much renewable energy is involved in the production of that thing. So this looks at you then can get out these kind of really quite boring but really important data points, which how much embodied carbon have you got in your product. So that's the third one, renewable energy and clean climate. Then you've got soil and water. So when you're producing this thing, how does it interact with the soil, and can it return to the soil? If it's a biological thing, if it's a paint, eventually that's going to come off the wall and end up in a water system or in the soil systems. Is it healthy? So you've got water and soil, and then you've got social fairness. So when you actually manufacturing this, has everybody been paid fairly? There's no slavery in the system. There's like very high criteria.
That's the thing you almost forgot in this all these bullet points. The last one is maybe when we are buying products that we can eat, food or beverages, we are more used to keep awake on that kind of thing, but not with designing and using materials, right?
But you get all of that built into the criteria. The interesting thing with Cradle to Cradle certified as a holistic thing is every 2 years you have to improve. So the certification is really just a kind of marketing tool of how well you've done so far, and actually the innovation framework and the ideas behind it are encouraging you to get to this place where we're solving some of these problems. So nothing's perfect at the moment. It's like we're doing the best we can, but there's an opportunity.
You could say like this energy label. We started with the A, and then you had AA, you had AAA, AAA, 5A. Where do we end up?
Yeah, exactly.
I think also that the other thing that, just sort of mentioning again the social fairness. When I started looking at social fairness some years back, and I've got a friend who works in one of the biggest local charities for refugees, and she was talking to me about how 75% of European products, these are products you and I buy for the most part, have slavery in the system. 75%. So if you look around your home, 75%, 3 in every 4 products in your home have slavery in the system. Now that's a shocking statistic. And this is why Cradle to Cradle is so powerful, because they actually put boots on the ground. They go and check every single factory. They go and visit them. They check that the energy is, solar or wind or whatever people say that it is. They actually visit these places. There's no way that anybody can say it is something when it isn't. So it's fully traceable, fully robust, fully assessed, fully verified, and it's third-party verified. They have firewalls even within their system. So they have these incredible global assessors who check the products. Then that material is bundled and sent to the institute. And the full title for that is the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute. And I know, Sven, we've given you all the links so your audience can link to all of this information later.
Yeah, wonderful. We are going to prepare a landing page especially for this.
Exactly.
For this
So
podcast.
it's a wonderful certification and robust science-based, evidence-based framework. So I like to say it's bulletproof. That's my phraseology of it. But it means that as a designer, if you find a cradle-to-cradle product on any level, because they have scoring at bronze, silver, gold, and platinum level, you know that that manufacturer is on the way to doing the right thing, and they've at least looked at those 7 areas, like Paul says, sort of there's 7 criteria, but it's effectively they call it five categories. And most manufacturers are only looking at singular siloed categories. So they might be looking at carbon, for example, which is quite a common one now, that people are looking at carbon. And that's great that they're looking at carbon, but actually methane gas, all the greenhouse gases, air and climate health is just one of the 5 categories that they robustly look at.
And we need carbon in this world. Otherwise, what happens?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's where that carbon is within a system is the issue. If it's fugitive in the sky, it's in the wrong place.
That's
if it's
it.
in the soil or in the trees or locked into some of these products. You've got a really good example of that is this product called the Koya, because it's a softwood. It grows very quickly, so and then it's modified, so it lasts as long as a hardwood. So it's actually sequestering the carbon, so you can actually lock carbon up in your project, become carbon positive is the way we like to describe it, because a lot of these ideas are actually, then this leads into the regenerative bit of it. We don't want to go for sustainability. Sustainability is this kind of zero line of just sustaining.
Yeah.
What we want to do is regenerate the system.
Yeah.
So
the other level.
clean the water, add more topsoil. Topsoil is not really talked about. It's an asset that we lose in at a huge rate. So,
Topsoils.
Yeah, topsoils, healthy soils. So looking at it from a system, and putting carbon back into the right part of that system, not being afraid of it. It's not the enemy. It's just we're losing it into the wrong bit of the system by doing the wrong things with it.
Yeah. So definitely be aiming for beyond sustainability. Sustainability is not enough. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the short route is obviously if you can find a cradle to cradle certified product, C2C product in your space. And most of these products, like a Koya, is a natural wood, like graphenstone paint, which we mentioned earlier. They are global. You can get them just about anywhere. There are very few territories that don't, where you can't actually access these materials. And the exciting thing is there are now 75,000-ish products that are...
75,000, wow. You made some progress the last few weeks.
It has. I mean, it was literally, we did a big exhibition in March, and we had the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute join us. They are our knowledge partners.
Yeah.
And at that point, they had a 75,000 known rate of products and materials. And literally, I think it was Paul mentioned about 2 days ago that they're now up to 75,000. So it's increasing incrementally.
It was 45, wasn't it? It was
45,000 and went up to...
Yeah, that's what I've written here on my notes. Yeah,
Exactly. So it's very, very exciting what they're doing. As I said, it's increasing exponentially. They've got a fantastic group of very smart chemists, engineers, and designers in this global assessor network. So whether you have, if you can't access the product, they can actually innovate products as well. And that's what they spend a lot of time doing. So let's say you have a very unique product that you need for a very unique scenario. You actually are able to access these partnership networks to help you innovate. But realistically, since the built environment is the area that they are most robust in, since the whole cradle to cradle ethos and philosophy and ultimately the framework came from a architect and a chemist. So it's very robust. And as I mentioned to you, Mark, there are fantastic case studies to look at. For example, Park 2020 in the Netherlands, the World Health Trade Center called the ZIN project. In Belgium, they've just established a 95% success rate for cradle-to-cradle certified products and urban mined products, which basically just means using products in the local vicinity. And that's a really doable really doable thing these days. It's not like you only get one product and the rest have to be linear design products.
No.
So it's very, very practical, very accessible, and in most cases it's now profitable, because if you look at how you look at budgets and price points, instead of looking at the price at price of purchase or point of purchase, you look at it over its lifespan. These products are usually very robust and usually best in sector, as Paul mentioned earlier. So the price over the time span of your product, it's usually a profitable scenario, and there's a lot of cases to prove that. So that's, there's no real reason not to do it anymore.
No, and I can imagine that if we increase the demand for good, healthy products, people need to shift their mindset on the production side of the suppliers. Clients are demanding for other stuff. It will change a lot, right?
Absolutely, and we're still seeing a lot of myths that we need to bust. We had a meeting just the other day, and back to paint, somebody said, "Oh, but do you have a color range, or do you only have whites?" For example, Grafenstone can match any RAL, literally. They can color match, and their own range is, I think it's about 360, 460 products, something like that.
Yeah, you're a very difficult designer when you don't find the right match. You have a horrible client when they are demanding for a color tone.
And they're absolutely fine with an RAL match.
Yeah.
So, gone are those days where sustainable products are rare commodities or low performing, or made of beeswax in the local beehive from the back of your garden. Gone are those days. These are very intelligent brands like Moser Tiles. We mentioned to you, Mark, in your backyard, Moser Tiles is brilliant porcelain tile, one of the most robust, brilliant brands in the world when it comes to sustainability, and they've just achieved cradle to cradle certified at gold for nearly their entire range. So whether you're looking at for carpets or paint or wood, there's very little that can't be done. And we actually did a proof of concept in London recently and it's not quite complete, but we've managed to do cradle to cradle certified products for an entire retrofit, including the glue that we used with Moser Tiles. So there's very little that can't be done. And there's Paul and I are struggling to keep up, and we're in this space all day long. Paul gets feeds to tell him what's going on. So it's a bit like technology. It's moving very, very fast. So anything in your head, I'm talking to your audience now, anything in your head that you think, oh, well, is it going to be as good? I would say it's going to be better. Is it going to be more expensive? I'd say no. Over the term, it's likely to actually be a more profitable project. The aesthetics are fantastic. You don't have to worry about the aesthetics. Just absolutely incredible products.
Yeah, because that's what we as a design, we're all looking for this beauty and the aesthetics in the environment, because beauty makes you literally, if you talk about science. In a few weeks we have, I'm not going to mention the names yet, but two people for design that talk about beauty and science, because it is science that beauty affects us on our happiness as well, and on our health. So it's kind of important that we, as designers as well, that we try to test and tweak and demand for the products. Like if it's not what we like to see, that we challenge I could say the chemists, the innovators, the biologists, the engineers, to come up with even more beautiful products, and just say, it's not on the market, I'm gone. So is there an opportunity for you on the platform to ask those questions if people are have any questions or demands for special products or?
Well, I know you're mentioning this later, where we're giving your audience access to some freebies, and part of that is consultation. But there are ways of accessing, and we'll wrap that up as well as an end note to find these materials. But usually when people actually find out, they're looking for a stone surface. We're one particular cradle to cradle certified stone manufacturer. I mean, Paul and I lost count after 48 pages, linear lines of every single SKU that they have. We lost count. I mean, that's just a stone product. We went to see their showroom, and it was mesmerizing to see how beautiful their products are. And I'm not, we speak about beauty sometimes in a way that's a bit derogatory these days, and that's actually not true. So when I did my optimizing human health, aesthetic is actually one of the key functions. So there is arrangement and design, but the aesthetic is part of the arrangement, part of the design. What we see is incredibly important. The tactile aspect of it, what it feels like, what it looks like, actually has a huge impact on our mental health. So
Yeah.
I was literally looking at mental disorders and rehabilitation times, and how we arrange and what our materials are literally have a definitive impact, an objective marker impact on our health. So we mentioned this, but it is critical, and unfortunately Cradle to Cradle certified products know that. So they don't usually just do one healthy tile and the rest is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Just like Moser, they've done this incredible range because they understand that we want to continue doing the important things, but we also need to have I don't like using the word sustainability. I prefer using regenerative design, because sustainability is just repeating the status quo. It's actually part of a degenerative design system. So we need to challenge that language as well.
Yeah, regenerative. Yeah, so beauty is regenerative, right? Because when you adore a product, when you love it so much, you're cherishing it. You want to keep it. You don't give it away. You don't throw it away. So that's a cool aspect. Sometimes the products that are maybe they're not healthy made, but there are some products in design world that last so long, and even when you look at it, it's not the best product quality, but the beauty is so good, and people are just it has this vintage level or those golden labels in design world, and it's so funny. So beauty is an important factor of sustainability as well, because if we think something is ugly or the building is ugly, there's a big chance we're going to demolish the building in a few years again, even when it's made with the best materials. But that's it's a challenge too, right?
Absolutely, and the good thing is you can have it all. And you really can. You don't have to actually go, oh well, I want to do a sustainable building and it's just going to be made of, I don't know, lime wash and hay or something. That's not the case at all. In fact, when people actually discover these materials, for example, we go back to Okoya, usually and historically we don't usually use a lot of wood in bathrooms, because for the fact that it moves and it rots and it swells and the paint peels off and all that sort of thing. So we tend to use other materials. But now with Okoya, you can actually do that, because it doesn't actually absorb the water. It doesn't expand and twist. So therefore you can actually use it in its natural state, or you can put coatings on it and it'll last much longer. And the guarantee speaks for themselves. It's 50 years above water and 25 years in water. And that's the product that Paul and I specified to the Environment Agency for the world's first fender in the Thames estuary. And we've now seen that and how robust that's been over the last couple of years. That's a plain radiata pine, uncoated, in a setting where it's got to deal with saltwater, freshwater, tides, animals, all sorts of things, and it's absolutely robust and beautiful. So you can now use that for entire cladding inside bathrooms and outside in decks and around pools and fountains and all sorts of things, which couldn't be done before. So actually, I would argue that these regenerative design, cradle to cradle certified products gives more design freedom and more robustness, more durability than actually we're familiar with. So when you start thinking about laminated products, how they pull apart and you've got the glues and you've got all these things, you don't have to have that anymore with some of these products. It's absolutely incredible what they've mastered. And some of them take 15 years. Cradle to Cradle Okoya took 15 years to finally develop this particular material. And we've seen Google use it now on their King's Cross outside mullions facing the weather. Beautiful, mullions instead of PVC or UPVC or aluminium that people tend to use for windows. So now we've got wood mullions. And we saw a Cradle to Cradle certified product being specified for the Microsoft office offices in London, and several of them were taken up by Microsoft both for Munich and for London. So we're seeing big brands who have the smarts and have the teams who can research some of the stuff. Bring that into projects. Like we say, the Environment Agency, we've seen Jacobs Engineering here in the UK, they're the biggest engineering company in the world, using it for products. So as a designer, whether you're doing residential products and you're small or you're one-man show, or whether you have a huge team or you're part of a multi-global design team, you can confidently use cradle to cradle certified products. And that was something the Environment Agency spent, I think, a year or two doing their due diligence on all the global standards that are out there, and came back to us and said, "You're right. It is the best. It is the best of the standards that align with our purposes. Obviously, there are different standards for different things, but for materials and products, for regenerative design, cradle to cradle certified is hands down by country mile the best of the bunch."
Yeah. So, well, yeah, lovely to hear that. I think you made a lot of listeners and following very excited and curious when you talk about the wood and all this, well, innovative technical products, but they look really natural, let's call it in that way, because, well, especially right now in the area we're living, we're looking for this biophilic design and all these terms that we want to get connected with nature again. And then sometimes people are showing us the world of really technical, nerdy AI, all this stuff is coming from the other side, where we are craving for the other world. So if the connection is possible and we don't have to do all the maths and the formulas and all the technical research to that, and there's an opportunity to just actually, well, my first impression was I'm going to create my own library from products that I will find on your platform that are matching my signature or my clients or my people, and let's find a way to communicate upfront. That's why we love always to communicate with your audience, with your clients, with your create team, as we call it, that you would like to use these kind of materials, and that it is part of your mission and part of the education you're educating the clients, so that you keep them awake, like, hey, you are the painter. Have you ever thought about this brand? Where can you get it? Where can you order it? Here's the link. And I want you to use this for the whole product, for the whole project. Sorry. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that is one way of doing it. We have seen quite a few clients doing that. We've seen teams. We recently met a big architectural firm. They've created what they call a Thrive team, which is literally to look at all the products the usual specifiers and procurement would be looking at, and then putting that through this additional filter of regenerative design or sustainable beyond sustainability. So they've set up a whole department doing exactly this work, looking at everything from carbon to some other.
They were testing what they always advise, and in some way they replaced some products and materials for
Absolutely. So they've realized they need to go beyond sustainability. They need to go beyond just the usual way of finding linear designed products. And we're seeing that in infrastructure as well. We're seeing that they are no longer just going, well, we just want a pipe or a concrete or a this or a that. They're actually starting to say, well, what else is there? What is better? Even with the Accoya fender, for example, the first iterations of the fenders were brilliant because they had no bad coatings for the Thames estuary. So it was great for fauna and flora to sort of latch onto it, but they went further, and we challenged them. And this is the kind of thing that we say is, it's not just about the material or the product. It's all about how are you setting it in, how are you mounting it? Are you able to demount it in the 50 years or the 20 years or the 5 years or the 6 years if you're a leisure industry designer? How are those access points designed into your thinking and into the client's conversations, the briefs? As I said right from the beginning, look at the ambition levels, the briefs and the contracts, make sure it's right up there so that you've challenged them in 6 years' time when you come back to me and say, right, I want to redesign this. Are we placing the mirrors set in glue that we can't then access them and we just got to smash them to get them down? Or are we looking at demountable mirrors? Demountable tile systems now exist. You don't need to smash tiles anymore. You can actually just demount them. There's so many amazing things that can be done. So it's really important to challenge yourself a bit and challenge your clients to think differently and think next iteration and what we like to say next use or reuse, as opposed to one-off use. That single-use idea really needs to go. It needs to shuffle off and rest in peace. But if we look at the whole circularity that Paul mentioned earlier, if we're looking at the sourcing that's traceable, local, urban mining, reusing where possible, and that's another thing. Clients used to not want to use materials that had been used before. Everybody wanted new, and I think we've gone beyond that. I think we realize new is a little bit taboo now. We actually really need to reuse. We had a fantastic Stockholm case study a while back where they saved the client 60% of the client's budget by actually looking at what was existing and recovering furniture and reusing and repairing, and they did an incredible job. They still met the objective of creating this great new office space.
Yeah, that's wonderful, right?
60%.
Yeah, we are serving premium clients, high-end clients for residential design, but we do have 11 principles, and one of them is that we don't, not everything has to be new, and it's what sometimes they are like, hey, yeah, but I like new, and I said, hey, what about new? What is it about new? Is it how does it feel for you? What is it? And if you can get to the core of the question. And that's very important as a designer. What is it? What is new doing with them? Or can it be that it is way more meaningful and important for them to use the right materials, and that they have a whole other self-fulfilling idea, or this fresh start or better start, how they see life or the next level. They have, all these people have other excuses, reasons to have a new environment. They want to be most of the time a better person or to level up. But what could this level up be? And so if we are asking better questions to our clients, if it's what could be the chance if we might have a look, and if you can get the opportunity to have a look at it with this kind of perspective.
Exactly, and we often ask them a different question. We'll say to them, what story do you want to have at the end of your design? Would you prefer to say, what story do you want to have? What do you want to market? What is your brand's value and the goodwill that you'll get out of it? So we actually had that very sincere conversation with Microsoft's designers some time back. And their designers had designed in a way that we challenged some of the things, some of the materials. And they did the due diligence. They went back to Microsoft, they had the conversation, and they came back to us and they said, actually, that's, we hadn't thought about it quite like that, and we actually would prefer to come out with a robust story that says we are actually using products that are verified, assessed, certified, good for the planet, as opposed to necessarily it looks good, or it's this, or it's that, or it's the next thing. So sometimes, no matter who the client is, they're willing to have that second conversation. And we say, have it earlier, if possible, but have it throughout, because they might not do it for this project, but they might do it for next project. So either way is use your influence wherever you are. And don't be scared. Some designers going, oh, but I'm scared if I say that, will my client, not want to work with me or drop off. Actually, I think they'll see you as more professional, and they'll see you as being sort of differentiating yourself, cutting edge, bringing the new ideas to them. You can't force them. You can't force anyone to do what they do.
No, but you will be surprised as a designer if you come up with this subject. People, it's all around you in every kind of subject. And now it's living in this type of phase of living, or they're building a new shop or business or whatever, and then it just adds up to what they are doing with maybe their own health or whatever. So
when you explain to them what that glue or what that paint is off-gassing, or what that sofa with a non-solid material wood base has, because it's off-gassing formaldehyde. So
we are going to steal your scary story about paint, and probably we have way more, because now Shalene is really talking. You really want to convince us to start designing sustainable and regenerative. So it's wonderful. And the best way to start with it, that's why I invited you to the podcast, you both. Paul, you are a little bit in the background the last few minutes, but we knew this was going to happen. That's the perfect.
Well.
That's how you work together.
Yeah, it's the interior architect, so it's very apt. But I just wanted to really add that the time to do this work is really beneficial now, because it's like when I first started doing this, it was quite tricky. There was just white paint, and you had to kind of just go, well, if I'm going to do this stuff, I'm going to have to just have the white one. And then the colors came, and then the opportunities came, and then the 70,000 products came. It's like, it's such an exciting time now to be doing this work. And there's technology that can make this stuff much easier. Like you talked about material libraries. There's technologies that can actually, because C2C for me, it's like the ID. It's like, this is what this thing is. We know what it is now. But what we don't want to do is get it lost. So the technology is available now that you can put an ID on that thing, keep it in a system, and it's actually an asset. Suddenly, you're taking it off the wall, or you're doing this thing, and it's become more valuable while it's been sitting there in your workplace or your home or whatever. So they're actually assets, they're investments, some of these things now. So you can actually, there's evidence out there, particularly like the last few years, where products, you specify them, by the time you actually delivered them into the project, the price was twice as much. You imagine that's in your project for 5 years, and the same kind of conditions are going on. You've suddenly got all these assets around you that are increasing in value. It's a completely different way of looking at design. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You're doing a great job. What we will do is we're going to share the link to your platform, but because people can get free access to it, the 550 World, to the directory for all these products and services, and all the information was there, which is really scientific certified. People did their research on the different levels we spoke today. So it's we can generally say that this at the moment is probably one of the best places to go to check if you're a healthy regenerative designer. So thanks a lot, because sharing this podcast with our global community, with the Beyond the Dairy Design Club, it was probably way more effective than the few projects we are doing on a yearly basis. So I'm glad that I could share your story. And we even reach way more people right now. So I do hope a lot of people will take action on your birthed message, because we have to take care of this world. It's a small planet, and only together we have the power to design this world.
Thanks, Mark and Sven and Paul. And thank you, the audience. I know there'll be probably some questions, and we'll be hanging around a bit for a while. Paul, for Mark, what is the sort of timeline?
If for people, if you have any further questions, you can ask them. You can ask Paul and Charlene for that. But thanks again for the wonderful story, and for your invitation to so people can reach out to you for their questions, and you can connect with them on LinkedIn, of course, our favorite platform. You can find them over there. We will put the link in the bio of the podcast and on our website, on the blog. So,
and I think it's just nice to remind everyone there are at least 4 access points. So for people new to all of this, you might want to read the Cradle to Cradle Remaking the Way We Make Things book, which is absolutely brilliant, just to get a really great overview of everything. You can obviously contact 540 World, and the website is really easy. You can email us at info@540.world. But also you can go to the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute. There's a products registry there, which shows you the material health products, certified products, and the Cradle to Cradle certified products. And then you can also go to 540 World's website, and there's a free downloadable directory called the C2C Design Directory. And I have to say, it's the world's first national directory, so it is specific to the UK, but a lot of those products are global. So it's a good place to have a look if you, and we update that monthly, so there are new ones coming through. But being 70 plus pages, we're nowhere near the 75,000 products list yet. So I'd advise have a look at both. And then there's a circular design network that we're doing in the UK, which everybody's welcome to join if you want to know more about what's going on.
Yeah, it's growing every day. The numbers, the collections, all the researches they are doing. So that'll be the good news of what's going on right now. Everybody needs this is the solution to continue. So thanks again.